Think about the last time you walked away from a long study session. You close the book, take a breath, and realize you remember absolutely nothing. Most people think this means they have a broken memory, but the truth is, your brain didn't forget that information. It actively rejected it. You sit there staring at pages coded in neon highlighter. You spent 3 hours reading the exact same paragraphs, carefully copying down terms. You performed every step of the process. Yet the second you look away, your mind goes completely blank. You can force your brain to keep this data by engaging 5 specific biological overrides. These triggers override your natural tendency to filter out dry information, ensuring that academic facts are treated with the same priority as a vivid personal experience. The problem starts with the physical act of studying itself. Gliding a pen over a textbook or rereading notes is a comfortable, low-effort experience. You are performing the ceremony of learning without actually forcing your neurons to encode the material. This flowchart illustrates why that comfort is a trap. When you look at a highlighted sentence, your brain signals recognition. It simply confirms it has seen the shape of the words before. Recall, however, is the much harder task of pulling that data out of thin air without any external help. Because passive reading lacks cognitive friction, your brain's identity center treats the information as irrelevant background noise. Without a personal or emotional hook, the nervous system deems the data useless and immediately clears the cache. You've likely hit that wall around midnight. Your eyes scan the text, but the words start floating off the page. A heavy fog rolls in, and you realize you've read the same page 4 times without absorbing a single concept. This mental flatline occurs because your nervous system has entered an automatic energy conservation mode. It isn't laziness, it is a biological response to cognitive overload. Your brain has effectively gone offline to save power. To fix this, you have to manually restart the hardware. Splashing ice-cold water on your face, standing barefoot on a cold floor, or using intense physical pressure sends a sudden spike to your vagus nerve. That physical jolt forces the system back into an active state. You cannot encode new information while your physiology is in standby mode. You must wake the body before you can record the data. Once the system is back online, you apply the retrieval-first method. Instead of opening your textbook to review, you start with a completely blank page. You force yourself to write down everything you remember about the topic with 0 help. The first time you try this, the silence in the room will feel loud, and the experience will be deeply frustrating. This timeline shows why that frustration matters. The flat line represents the comfort of reading, while the jagged line represents the struggle of retrieval. Your brain registers this friction as critical for survival, flagging it for permanent storage. Struggling, then checking the answer, creates a neurological save state. Each cycle of failure and correction thickens the neural pathway, locking the memory into place. This leads to a new rule for your study sessions. Studying for comfort leads to forgetting. If you want to remember, you must study for conflict. Your brain filters for identity, keeping information that feels personal while discarding sterile academic facts. This is why you can remember a complex television plot from 5 years ago, but forget a definition you read 5 minutes ago. You can bypass this filter through character fusion, the act of role-playing a formula or process in the first person. If you are studying economics, don't just memorize supply and demand. Speak as if you are the CEO of a viral brand, deciding to double prices because you know the customers will still pay. Next, you apply chunk collapse. This involves taking that entire role-play and compressing it into a 2 to 5 word tag. The weirder the tag, the more effective it becomes. You might condense the Krebs cycle into biological hamster wheel, or the prefrontal cortex into the CEO. These tags act as a high-density retrieval cue. Under the pressure of an exam, you don't search for a full paragraph of text. You grab the cue, and the entire framework of the role-play follows it back into your active memory. Effective memory relies on these high-density cues. They allow you to hold complex structures in your mind by condensing them into personal, easily accessible triggers. You can further boost retention by tapping into how your brain processes internal signals. Research into multisensory encoding suggests that the auditory cortex flags your own voice as a highly familiar and trusted signal, making it easier to internalize than external sources. Record yourself explaining a difficult concept out loud, exactly as if you were talking to a curious child. Don't read from a script, speak casually, and explain the why behind the facts. Pair this recording with a low-intensity rhythm or ambient music and loop it while doing chores or walking. This allows your subconscious to process the information in the background, bypassing active mental resistance. This creates a persistent echo in your memory. The information becomes part of your internal environment, allowing you to absorb complex data without the mental exhaustion of a traditional study session. That feeling of sitting alone in a dark room, postulate that nothing is sticking, is the predictable result of using the wrong biological tools. You are shifting your focus from recall, which is often a brute force struggle, to access. You are building a specific architecture that allows your brain to retrieve data on command. When you stop fighting your brain's natural filters and start speaking its biological language, the anxiety of learning begins to disappear. You gain a quiet confidence in your ability to store and retrieve any subject. By applying friction, identity-based roleplay, and sensory resets, the act of learning becomes a dynamic process. It feels like a functional system you control rather than a robotic chore. You have installed a retrieval system that works with your biology. Mastering these overrides transforms studying into a highly effective, addictive process that your brain actually enjoys.